podcast. I'm Perry Patterson, and I write new adult romance.
And I am MK Stavely, and I write cozy mysteries with a paranormal twist.
Tonight on our podcast, we are welcoming author L.M. Archer, and she has written a 4-book series, which she calls the Take Me to Church series. It involves 4 books. She has written a total of 5, and her books fall into the LGBTQ plus genre, specifically MM romance. And when and your first name is really, it's Lena, right?
Yes, yeah.
Do you want us to call you Lena? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, Lena is perfectly fine.
Okay, welcome. Thank you for being with us. You first reached out to me when we first started the podcast. It was in January, so we're very new. But you reached out to me and you just asked, by the way, I write LGBTQ plus. Is it okay? And I wrote back, sure, of course. Our platform is, when we started the podcast, we wanted to feature indie authors and we wanted to put a spotlight on indie authors. We're indie authors ourselves, so we know how it is to get recognized. Yeah. And I think among the author, the authors that are, in the indie genre, I think that we're very supportive of each other and we'd be very supportive of other authors. And so that was, I was immediately sure, of course, yes, we will. I mean, I did say, oh, by the way, MK and I don't really read that genre. And you're like, okay. But having said that, I have read all 4 of your books. And and I downloaded them on Kindle and I've read all 4 of them. Now, normally MK and I do read the books because, people put their information on the survey form, when they want to be on the podcast. We read through that so that we can, we do tend to buy, and sometimes she'll read a different book from that author and I'll read a different book, but we do that. I mean, that's usually what we do anyway. Yeah. But having said that, I do want to give you a little introduction, and then I also want you to be thinking about something like a fun fact that maybe we don't know about you or something that would be fun to talk about. So think about that while I'm giving you the introduction. And
don't put her on the spot.
So L.M. Archer was first drawn to writing as a way to express her feelings when oftentimes she found that she couldn't say them out loud. That's why her writing is more on the dark side of the romance spectrum. She tends to write in a way that showcases real scenarios and events. Her books tackle mental health, moral values, religion, and many other topics that are raw and real. She is not afraid to make her readers look at the darker side of humanity and question the very foundation of life and existence. The topics in her books can be triggering, but she is a firm believer that you need to shed light on certain situations because keeping them in the dark only hurts more. So that's a bio that you sent us. Thank you for sharing that with us. And if you want to tell us a little fun fact, then.
Okay. Well, I guess a fun fact. My readers mostly know this, but I think it's just a really fun fact to have. I grew up in a conservative Christian household, but I went on to study religion in college. And I also studied anthropology. So I always joke that the only thing I've done with my religious studies degree is write these books.
Okay. Well, and having said that, I do want to let our listeners know, anybody that's watching live and anybody that's going to listen to this later on Spotify, that this is going to be an open space, a safe space, and we want to be very open and honest with each other, because I think that the more that you find out about other people is a good thing, because honestly, there should never be anyone that says, oh, well, your opinion is wrong, because there shouldn't be anybody that says that. That's ridiculous. No. Because you should not, because a lot of times you don't know unless you ask, oh, how did you land on that, idea or information or belief? Unless you ask them and find out more about them, you would not know. So, and certainly I think it's important to ask those questions and to find out. Now, with all of that being said, we know that people read a lot of different genres of books, And that's why, you know, we want to feature indie authors on our podcast, because reading can be very subjective. You like what you like, and you know, we understand there are a variety of genres. And so that's what the point of the podcast is, to shed a light. Now,
yeah.
And having said that, I do want to let you know, I am a Jesus follower. I'm going to say Jesus follower, not Christian, because I think Christian can tend to
I respect
have a negative you know, connotation toward that. So
yeah.
I'm going to say that I think that Jesus showed us love, and he showed us love in a very, very important way when he was here. And he was criticized often, I think, by who he was hanging out with and who he was spending time with. Criticized very often, and then also even for healing people in the South was very criticized. But I did grow up in the church, and I go to a non-denominational church here in the Atlanta area now. That is one of those churches that is very welcoming to everyone, and I do believe that God's love is for everyone, and I do believe that there is love and forgiveness for anyone that is seeking that. And I think that is the main thing that, you know, I feel is very important for me. And so I want to make sure that, you know, I'm hopefully showing that to everyone that I come in contact with. And I know that actions, you know, how you live your life and how you tend to do things is very important. So
yeah, and I completely respect that. Actually, one of my best friends who Alpha read this as I was writing the series, she is a firm believer in God and Jesus, and she's a lot like you. She's kind of, you know, she believes in love and acceptance, and she didn't have any issues with the things I wrote about in the book because she's like, yeah, some Christians do that, and I think it's important to shed light on those topics. So she's kind of very similar to you, and I really respect that. I try not to disrespect religion at all. I just do have a degree in it, and I have my own personal beliefs, and I don't know if those come through in the series, and if they do, good. Some people say that they ask me, and they're like, what do you believe in? I'm like, because I like to keep the mystery, but I think that if you really read it, and you can probably figure it out. But yeah, I do respect people who believe in God and believe in Jesus, and, you know, follow whatever religion they want, as long as they don't shove it down others' throat.
Right. And we are going to get into some of the specifics of the characters, Harlan and Luca, in the book in just a minute. But I'm going to let MK ask a few initial questions first before we dive into some of the deeper topics in the book.
If that's okay.
That's fine. I'll just go with the flow.
Okay, well, by the way, you have like the cutest accent. Where are you originally from?
I am from West Virginia, so we pretend we're the South, and we're not. But I am from Southern West Virginia, and the character, like the series, is loosely based in the Appalachian region. I don't give it a specific city or even state. I just say the South, but it's based very much on like culture from how I grew up.
Okay, that's what we were kind of wondering.
Can I just say okay, well, I was born in Alabama.
Yeah.
I graduated from the University of Alabama, and I grew up in South Louisiana, which is near New Orleans. So I kind of grew up like going to the French Quarter when I was just a child. I mean, it was kind of very close to where I lived. And so I kind of, I feel very connected to New Orleans and the French Quarter, but I would never consider, I mean, just from where I'm from, I live in Atlanta now, obviously. I both live in the Atlanta area, but you know, I would never consider West Virginia considered the South. I had no idea. So you would consider it the South, or just?
Personally, I know history, and I know U.S. history, and I know Civil War history, and West Virginia was not a part of the South. However, if you ask the people in my area, they're, you know, very, yeah, they think they're the South. Like they think they're the South. There's like Confederate flags everywhere, and you know they say Southern pride, and I'm like, you obviously skipped a total of 8th grade, because that was all West Virginia history, and you skipped that completely. Right. But I personally do not consider us the South. But I am from basically a border of, like, I lived on the border of Kentucky, which is very much south, and also Ohio, which was more was the other side. So it was very interesting.
I'm from Ohio.
Oh yeah, well
I'm from Ohio. So.
I can literally, where I live currently, I can go to Ohio within like 20 minutes. So
Really?
yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
where I'm from originally.
we pretend we're south, but we're not.
Right. Right. That's awesome. So I know in one of the books there is mention of conversion camps
Yes.
and stuff like that. Did you do research on those, or do you have somebody that you know was subjected to one of those?
I did a lot of research. I honestly made it a little bit lighter than some of the stuff I found. And I went into some pretty heavy details about it. I personally never went through it. I do believe, though, that if my parents had ever found out, they would have been tempted to like put me in like a one-on-one session with the preacher if they had ever found out my sexuality, which can be a version of conversion therapy. Because a lot of these places, even if it's illegal, they'll do it underground, and they'll do like one-on-one sessions with a preacher and pretend that that's therapy, when in reality the preacher is just spending the entire time trying to tell them all the reasons why being gay is bad. So it's not something I personally went through, but I heard my whole life about how being gay is a sin and how it's a choice and we need to pray for homosexuals and all of these other things. And then I first learned about conversion therapy as a whole in classes in college. And then when I was writing this book and I decided that I definitely wanted to take it there, I wanted to be realistic, and I did a crap ton of research on it.
Yeah, I was wondering. I mean, and the other thing is I was kind of wondering what made you choose this specific genre or subject to write a whole series about.
Well, it's a personal subject for me. Like I just mentioned, I am queer. I'm bisexual. I grew up in the South. I grew up in a place where I was constantly told that gay people are going to go to hell and it's wrong and blah, blah, blah. And as I got older and my worldview just started to shift, I realized how wrong it was to say that to people, and how so many people have such a hard time with their sexuality because they're ashamed of it, because they're taught to be ashamed of it. So I used not only my conservative Christian upbringing, but my degree in religious studies to start this book. And then I knew that I wanted Luca to go to conversion therapy, but I didn't know if I wanted to go in detail when I started writing it. And then I just decided, let's go for it. Let's put it in detail. And that was really important for me because I mentioned this in a recent TikTok video. I chose to do that because so many people who go through conversion therapy, they can't skip the page. They can't go to a different chapter. They can't skip that scene. They can't just shut the book. They have to live it. And if I can make someone do one iota of that and understand what these people go through and the kind of brainwashing that happens at these places, then I feel like I did my job. Because so many people have written to me and said, I didn't even know this existed. I Googled it and it's legal in my state. And I Googled it, it's legal in my country. I Googled it and I had no idea this was a thing. And so just knowing that I put that kind of impact on somebody just means the world to me.
Yeah,
Great.
I had no idea really. I mean, I think maybe I've somewhat maybe heard about it, but I guess I didn't realize how realistic it was. And I can actually kind of understand, where you're coming from. Being in a church that is saying you can't is going to make you question, and it's also going to make you pull farther away, because those are not accepting or loving. That kind of goes way against what I think God really is about. And it just kind of goes to show you that people can be very prideful, people can be very arrogant, and those characteristics are something that, you know, absolutely we don't really appreciate at all. And, you know, no, we don't, but they're very bad characteristics to show. But unfortunately, we can be, you know, we can be very selfish. Even the little, you know, toddlers, you know, when you're a parent, you know, did you eat the cookie? And, you know, they look up at you with the crumbs on their mouth and a smear of chocolate on their chin and say no, you know, you know, they're not being told how to lie or how to be selfish, but yet it's there from the beginning. So we know that, you know, we have, you know, these flaws of being, you know, non-perfect, and definitely have sometimes very inappropriate, you know, attitudes or things like that. But definitely, I can definitely see being in that situation, being just making you want to question everything. And you know, it being very, very difficult and very hard. And I saw that through the characters, Luca and Harlan. It was very realistic in a way, obviously, but because in a way it seemed like, okay, well, they're seniors in high school, they must be in a very small town somewhere. But where I grew up, you know, guys, I graduated from high school in 1985. I mean, that just kind of shows you how old I am. But where I was in high school, it was like guys were coming to school in full makeup. I mean, where I was from.
No,
this was
not
like
at all
a normal thing. And of course, we had jelly bracelets up to our elbows, and we had our pants rolled up and jelly shoes on and huge earrings, and guys were wearing full on makeup and 2 shirts and their collars up. I mean, it was just a very, you know, fashionable high school, but it was a very progressive high school. I lived in an area